G'day, it's Jamie, and welcome to Where's My Yowie. Today, I'm reading an old newspaper report about a Bunyip sighting at Gippsland Victoria in 1907, so we'll get into it. This was published in Melbourne's The Age on Saturday, the 23rd of March 1907, titled Concerning a Bunyip by W.G. A new bunyip was discovered the other day in Gippsland, and in the reports announcing the discovery of the creature was stated to be very like a seal. The familiar ring about this phrase may have suggested to the incredulous something of the unreality of those interesting cloud effects that appeared to Shakespeare's lugubrious hero to be very like a whale. Let me hasten to remove this impression with testimony that may assure the curious, believing or unbelieving, that the bunyip was like a seal, has an actual, tangible, material existence. Exactly what the creature is, I make no pretense of saying. What its aspirations to the dignity and prerogatives of Australia's traditional evil spirit, however, I am quite out of sympathy. But the so-called bunyip is a living, breathing animal, capable of being slain or snared, I am prepared to affirm. I have had the distinction of something more than a passing acquaintance with a specimen of the species bunyip that is very like a seal, have been quite close company with the creature on 3 occasions, and once had the opportunity of getting a pretty good look at it. The first acquaintanceship dates back 3 years. The summer evening was drawing in, and I was sculling quietly along a broad, deep stream in the backwoods of the Far East, where a lofty cliff sheared down almost vertically into the still, dark water. It was a famous place for platypus, and there were always wombats and other bush creatures along the cliffs. My introduction to Brer Bunyip began with a pretty considerable splash just astern of the skiff. There were usually a good many cattle browsing precariously on the steep banks of the river, and not infrequently a beast slipped headlong in. The dimensions of the splash at once suggested bos in aqua, but on looking sharply round, I was astonished to behold not the customary surprised and pained expression of a partially submerged bovine face, but the surprising spectacle of a long, lithe, dark-coloured body streaking for the depths below. It had slipped downwards out of sight before I could get a good look at it. Now I thought I knew all the things that walk and hop and creep about the bush. I certainly thought I knew all the inhabitants of the somewhat lonely place, and this queer apparition of the quite unknown surprised and interested me. I could not have been a conger eel, because it must have jumped from the bank, and the conger eel is not addicted to going ashore and taking springboard exercise. And there was no other creature that the thing even distantly resembled as far as I knew. So it remained a damp and dark mystery for quite a long while. A few months afterwards, on somewhat duskier evening, in very nearly the same place, I encountered the bunyip again. This time I was making somewhat more noise than usual, but hearing very distinctly a substantial crackling of twigs on the bank just ahead of the boat. I watched the place closely and presently saw a long, dark body plunge endwise into the water from a small bush near its edge and disappear in a considerable swirl. It did not reappear within view at least. After that experience, I sought expert advice and information and came upon those who had seen the same thing before me. Amongst these was an amateur naturalist and a great authority on local fauna, who evinced the liveliest interest in my narrative about the bunyip. It was an old acquaintance of his too. One evening, about 2 years previously, he said he had been out in the river with a friend gathering specimens for a small museum. On the way home, they saw what they believed to be a dog swimming across the stream at a place where it was unusually narrow. They soon perceived that there was little that was canine about the creature, and without waiting to observe it any closer, one of them picked up a gun and blazed at it point blank. Whether it was hit or not, said the naturalist, we could not say. It went straight down and we saw it no more. I think that it must have been killed because I never seen it since. The description my friend was able to give of the creature he had seen tallied in all respects with that of my bunyip. Less than 9 months ago, I saw the bunyip again, quite plainly this time. It was stretched out on a large dead snag that projected a few feet across the river, close to the surface, at a place where the river was deepest and widest. I had got quite close to the thing before it saw or heard me. It was nearly black and about 3 feet 6 inches or 4 feet long. The head was unmistakably that of a seal, but much more like that voracious denizen of the North American rivers known as the mink. The body was lithe, resembling that of the mink, and the tail was long and quite unlike the flapper of a seal. I was within 8 or 9 feet of the creature when it suddenly noticed the skiff and slipped almost silently into the depths. There was a light fowling piece on the thwart, quite handy, but the cartridges were refills and both barrels missed. That ended my acquaintance with the bunyip. I am sorry that I did not collect him. I went along there many times afterwards with a 45 caliber Webley, always handy, but never saw him again. He is no doubt there yet, but what in the name of all that is curious was this creature? Surely, after all, there may be stranger things in our Australian natural philosophy than what we wot of. The end. That's really interesting. That the guy was saying it's nearly black and about 3 feet 6 inches long or 4 feet long, and he said it had a head like a seal, but the body was like that of a mink, and it had a long tail and definitely not flappers of a seal. I've read a couple of stories, done a couple of stories where they're saying that people are seeing large otter-type creatures in as what they think were bunyips, which is really interesting because this sounds like an otter to me, and it's just really strange whatever he saw. Okay, that's it from me. I'll get back to you all next time. Bye.